Hello and welcome to the Water Bear podcast. So, if you're watching, tonight's episode is a little bittersweet because this is the season 4 finale. So, this is episode 10 of season 4, and we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. So, let's get some of the preliminary things out of the way. Again, welcome to the show, Water Bear podcast. If this is your first time watching, just a little explanation or behind the scenes about the title. So if you know anything about astrology or the zodiac signs, the water bear is synonymous with Aquarius. We're the zodiac sign that pretty much holds the water, so to speak. So that's where the name of the podcast comes from. If you have not already done so, please join the Drip family. In other words, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that way you'll be notified of any content or uploads to the YouTube channel. Although I will have about a 2-month hiatus. I'll be back with season 5 at the end of May, but there still will be plenty of content that's going to be uploaded to the page in the interim. So if you don't mind, please do that. Also, you can catch the podcast on the go as well on Spotify, on Audible, even iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts, pretty much wherever you stream the audio podcast, you can find the Water Bear podcast there. And then you can catch the Drip every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So next Thursday, we won't have another episode, but you're welcome to come back and check out the rest of the season if you missed any of those episodes or any episodes from any of the prior seasons. So if you've been watching the promos, then you know that for this particular episode, I'm doing something different. So by now I would have said, hey, here's a famous Aquarius and then a famous sign of the guest that I have. I'm not going to reveal who the sign is or what his sign is, I should say. But I'm doing something different this time. So we won't reveal my special guest, Dr. Groves' sign, until maybe towards the middle of the show. Because we're talking about stereotypes of zodiac signs. So I'm curious of those who are out there watching, go ahead and as we're talking, you can start leaving your guesses as to what you think his sign might be. So also, if you haven't already done so, you can follow me on social media, Instagram, PEAUX. That's poetic. And on TikTok, it's the same thing. Poetic with the same spelling and then the number 7 at the end. Also, you can follow Dr. Groves on Instagram at living_well_Plano and on Facebook at Living Well Chiropractic. So he is the owner of Living Well Chiropractic. So you can follow those pages. I've known Dr. Groves now for it's got to be 10 years, I would say, maybe even a little bit longer than that. So he's been my chiropractor. We have a lot of deep conversations about just many different things. And I feel like he's my pseudo medical doctor as well. He's given me some great tips over the years that have really worked from a medical perspective or that have made my health better. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Dr. Groves on out. Hey, Dr. Groves, how are you?
Hey, Carlos. Thank you for having me.
Of course. You're welcome. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I know I gave a brief introduction, but do you want to give the viewers and the listeners any additional information about you or about yourself?
Well, sure. I've been a chiropractor for, I guess, almost 24 years now.
Awesome.
Here in Plano. I'm a father of 4.
Okay.
My youngest is 22, so they're it's kind of hard to believe, but they're all almost almost all on their own. So yeah, that's
wow. Yeah, I wouldn't. It's funny
right?
because I wouldn't think you'd have a 22-year-old. It doesn't seem like that's possible.
Well, he's my youngest, right? So
right.
So no, that's great. So wonderful family. Gosh, what else? I mean, this podcast is meant to kind of like be a little bit mysterious at the same time. So I don't want to give
Yes.
too much away.
Okay.
But no, chiropractor, father. I like to think somewhat adventurous. Love to travel,
Okay.
and love to cycle. That's kind of my main hobby, and yeah, that's pretty much kind of it in a small synopsis of that.
Nice.
So
Okay. Cool. Well, I'll give just a brief testimony of how I came to you for your services, chiropractic services. And I'm really trying to remember exactly how many years it's been, because I feel like it has been about 10, I think, or close to
I
it.
think longer, Carlos. I think
Yeah,
longer.
I think longer too, actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. I think it has been longer because I remember I got into a pretty bad car accident on 635. And I remember I was going through everything with the insurance, and then the idea of going to a chiropractor came up, and I was all for it because as far back as high school, I had issues with my back where it would just, well, as people say, I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say this, my back just went out, or it seems like
Oh,
it
right.
just
Yeah.
stopped
Hear it all
working.
the time.
Yeah. And so I was growing up, I would hear my aunt say that. And in my head, I would say, oh, she's just being dramatic, like her back, it can't be that bad. And then when it happened to me, I remember I was a senior in high school, and I used to play, I was in marching band, and I played pretty much any drum you imagine, like bass drum, snare drum, quads, all that. And I think that's what really kind of messed up my back. And so, long story short, felt this twinge. It was really hard to get out of the bed. And then I remember it would just kind of go away and come back and go away over the years. And then after the car accident, I got nervous because I've always heard these horror stories of, people getting in accidents, and then, their back is never the same. So I remember one of the early visits, you recommended that I go get an MRI done because you thought that maybe I had a herniated disc. And sure enough, you were right. That's exactly what it was. And then also, I know a few years ago, I had an issue where my blood sugar was a little bit elevated, and you told me about intermittent fasting, and did it faithfully for 3 months, went back, and my doctor's like, what have you been doing? And so I told her intermittent fasting. So she's like, keep it up. So in all honesty, I feel like I need a few more weeks before I go see my doctor again, because I haven't been following that like I should here lately. But I'm getting myself back on track. So I made sure I ate dinner before our podcast episode tonight, just so that I could kind of get
that's
back on
just
track.
that's a small piece of really trying to one of the tools to keep blood sugar under control. But there's a lot of different things you could do. But that's something to, whether you do intermittent fasting or do a full day fast once a week, but it's trying to get your body to be adaptive and to be metabolically to adapt to not having that glucose and keeping your glucose low, and being fat adaptive, really, so your body can switch to fat burning. So, but that's a whole nother. We can go down a whole nother trail with that. But but yeah, that is a good tool to use. So yeah, and I was sitting here thinking, you've been seeing you since, gosh, like 2010, maybe somewhere in there. 2000. So it's been a bit.
Yeah, it has. It's been a long time. Yeah.
So
oh no, what were you gonna say?
No, and it's been great. It's always a pleasure when you come in with
Thank you.
great energy. It's always you always have a smile on your face, so it's always great. So
thank you. I appreciate that, and same with you too. I'm sure you do have bad days, or maybe you might be in a bad mood sometimes, but I've never seen it. So I really appreciate that.
You just gotta Yeah, and it's all about, and I think that's a lot. I mean, yeah, everybody can have a bad day, but it's a choice really how you express it, how you
Mhm.
handle whatever comes at you, stress and so forth. So,
Right,
but you're right. And,
right.
and I guess we're kind of touching on a little bit of the topic, really.
Yes. Yeah, because I know we've had conversations about that. So do you think it feels like to me, at least in my lifetime, I feel like zodiac discussions or anything about astrology, I feel like it's almost like an all-time high as far as people who are interested in it. They almost live by it to the standpoint or to the extent of, maybe they don't want to talk to a certain person because of what their sign is. And so I know we've kind of talked about this sometimes when I've, come in for my appointments, but do you think that people today are using their zodiac sign as a way to escape accountability?
Mm. Um, you mean, well, yeah, as an excuse for behavior,
Yeah, right, right. So I'll give you an
or how
example.
they interact? Sure.
Right. No, right. With people or because so one example is, and I'll use my own sign. So I'm an Aquarius, and one of the things that I have read repeatedly about Aquarians is that we're thought to be non-empathetic. We just lack empathy. And so then that kind of goes down the whole rabbit hole of, I guess it's a distant cousin, I'd say, of what some people would say is narcissistic. And then it becomes, in some instances, where people will say, oh, well, I don't have to care about your feelings because I'm an Aquarius. That's
Mhm.
because it's like that's what they do. Or even if you take a Gemini, the stereotype of them being two-faced or having two sides, um, could make some people feel like, well, yes, I can act one way in your face and then act another way behind your back because, hey, I'm living up to this stereotype of being a Gemini, um, which I think could be a little dangerous, maybe.
Well, that's interesting because
Mhm.
I don't, and I know a little bit about zodiacs, but I don't even know, like I didn't know that about Aquarius, and I did
Oh,
not.
mhm.
I mean, it's one of those things. It's interesting, of course, because there's at some level the luminaries in the sky and have an effect on us, right? At
Right.
some sort of energy level. It is interesting. Um, I don't know. I mean, for someone, it could be narcissistic for anybody to stop and think about their sign and then throw it and project it out there that
Right. Whatever
that
the
this is a reason,
quality is.
whatever it is, because I would think you're kind of doing it on an unconscious level.
Mhm.
However you're reacting to things, if it's really part of your being, at some level, maybe you're doing these things in a sense, kind of automatically, unless you're
Mhm.
self-aware enough to maybe catch it.
Right.
Um, but no, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know. I would see. I don't know if I would think of it as narcissistic in that regard for just being not being empathetic or even
Mm.
sympathetic.
Okay.
Well, does it change with sympathy versus empathy? Is there a change there when you've experienced
Right. Right.
it?
Exactly. Yeah. No, that is a good point because I do think some situations, and again, to your point, regardless of your sign, um, it may be hard for a person to be empathetic if they've never been through it.
Hmm.
So I feel like there's something to be said for that too. So, maybe that person might lack sympathy or empathy or both in some cases, because they may not know what it feels like to be in certain situations.
Right. Yeah. So
Mhm.
harder to relate until they experience it themselves. They can't put
Right.
themselves there in their mind or in their feelings.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Right. Okay. Um,
And
Yeah, that's a good point. So, like I was saying, just being conscious of every, conscious of other people's feelings, I guess, start with, and then we're trying to, or you put yourself in that scenario, of course, but are you really aware by your characteristics of the zodiac? Are you even aware that you're doing those? Would you even be aware that you're not being, in your mind, you think you're caring, but but the other thing is the other person is processing everything through their looking glass or their
Point, right.
eyeglasses of their how they see the world, their perception too. So it's kind of hard to know. You're right.
Yeah, it is. And it's, it's funny too, because I, believe it or not, this show got started because I was on another podcast and we had an episode towards the end. It was a group podcast. And one of the things that came up is I said, if I'm in a relationship and sometimes if there's a big argument or something I'm really upset about, I don't like to address it right then. I need time to kind of retreat because I feel like if I say what I'm feeling in the moment, it's going to be ugly.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to avoid that, I kind of want to retreat, which I always thought was mature. But apparently, to the two guests on the show, which is funny, they actually ended up being my very first guests of this podcast when I started it a little over a year ago. They asked me, well, how long do you need to retreat? And I said, well, it depends on the offense. And when I say offense, not in an arrogant way, like, oh, you offended me, but just however I feel about the situation. So it could be, if it's something minor, I might only need a couple hours. But if it's something really big, it might take me a few days. And I said 5 days. That was the number I threw out. And it was really hypothetically. And they were just floored. Like 5 days. Like, what are you doing in 5 days? And nobody's going to put up with that and blah, blah, blah. And so I saw this video on TikTok shortly after that. And this lady was talking about how she dated an Aquarius guy or she had dated several Aquarius men. She said she really enjoyed all of them, but the one thing that she felt they lacked was, she didn't say empathy, but she said basically that she felt like they were cold emotionally, like she couldn't really connect with them on an emotional level. So then that kind of started getting my wheels turning and thinking, okay, well, every sign, I feel like if you think about it, has that quirk or something that maybe someone wouldn't like. And so apparently that's the one for Aquarius, I guess, specifically the males. So yeah, I was just, kind of curious to get your take on that. And what do you think is maybe the intrigue or the enticing quality about Zodiac, as far as it being such a trending topic, like on social media and things like that? I don't know if you've seen the challenge, but like there's this challenge going around now where people will say, and I even made one too, and I posted it, but people will say like, oh, I'm an Aquarius, I'm blah, blah, blah. And then they go, oh, and usually it's kind of like different cuts of videos, but it ends up being like a minute long clip or a little bit longer than that. So it's kind of like a dry humor type thing. But why do you think people focus on zodiac sign traits so much?
Well, and strictly in a love relationship.
Yeah. Well, and we could break it
most
down
people
in
do.
different ways. Right.
Yeah, I would say most people do. I don't know that when they're looking for friends that they look at that, right?
Right. True.
I would have to say, because everybody, I would think most people, they're looking for that. They're thinking maybe the soulmate or that perfect fit. And if they could use whatever tools they can use to find that, if there's something to it, they're probably, they'll either, jump in with both feet, or they may at least dabble, look at it a little bit and see, or they've had that experience, right? Where they as through life experiences, multiple relationships, they probably start seeing some trends where some things maybe click a little bit, and they see, you know, that makes sense, and so they start maybe looking at it closer. I really don't know. I didn't know it was trending higher now, so I didn't really know that.
I mean, and that's
And
just, I have no stats to back that up, but I just feel like it's everywhere. And it
you're
could
seeing
be,
it more often. Yeah.
yeah, it could be the whole deal of, you know, you get a certain type of car, maybe because I've been doing this podcast, I don't know. But
It's your algorithm.
right. Right. So that it very well could be that too. But it feels like even in conversations, I can be in a restaurant
Okay.
and I'll overhear somebody say, "Oh no, I can't, you know, date him or her because you know, they're Pisces or you know, whatever the case is." It's like even outside of the social media realm, it seems like it's just everywhere. It appears to be, at least. Um, and so I know we haven't revealed your sign yet, but and I'm trying to be careful, tread carefully here, because I know we're about 20 minutes in, so I'd say
What?
it's almost safe
Well, what do you,
to.
you know, think of when you talk about stereotypes with this, it's kind of interesting because because there's definitely something to the zodiacs, right? I mean, there's
Yes.
because there's
Mhm.
and there's some probably a lot of, and I don't know because I don't know all the characteristics of them, but
Oh, let's see. I can see you, but I can't hear you anymore. Uh, huh. That's weird. I don't know what happened. Maybe, and if anyone's watching, hopefully you can let me know, at least if you can hear me. But if maybe if you try to go out and go back in, maybe that'll help if you can hear me. Or maybe I'll bring you out of this view and then bring you back in. I'll try that. Let me see. Okay. I just took you out and added you back in. I don't know if that'll help. That's so weird. Yeah, I can't. Oh, wait, I just saw something was muted and now it's not. Oh, wait, now it is. It's showing you're muted somehow. That's weird. Okay, let's see if there's something I can change. Let's see. I still can't hear on my end. Let's see. And while we're doing this, um, I'm just curious for those that are watching or listening, if you want to give any feedback as far as your zodiac sign and some of the stereotypes and things that you've heard, go ahead and drop that in the comments. Like I said, I've heard for Aquarius that we're, another one that I've heard a lot is that we're very quirky, very different. So I definitely would agree to that one.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's
Okay.
perfect now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what
Some
happened
kind of
there.
glitch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it's weird.
glitching.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
So
What
I
you were
think I was saying something. I think I was saying I think there's probably a lot of overlap in a lot of characteristics, but I don't really know what all they are. But then you have numerology, right? And you could look at
Yes.
how people line up through numerology, and
Mhm.
so and then you have the Chinese zodiac. I mean, that's a totally different.
Mhm.
Not that I don't know. I don't think many people that I know use that,
Right.
but I mean,
I
but
only
there's
know,
some
I think I'm a rat,
characteristics.
apparently, which I don't know how I feel about that, but I think that's what my animal is.
So you have all these things that have influence, I guess.
Right.
Obviously, the I guess most everybody is using just the sun sign, or they're using the moon as well, right?
Okay. So that you bring up a very good point, because I had a guest on this season, and it's funny. We talked about sun sign and then your moon and rising. And so she's a Leo, and she does not like Scorpios, like, at all. She just does not like them. And but
Mm-hmm.
what's so funny about that is her rising sign is a Scorpio. And it's funny to me because I kind of found that a lot with different people, where they have this great, I don't want to say hate because that's pretty strong, but they just a strong dislike, I'll say, to a certain sign. And that sign is in their chart, and they, they don't even realize that, okay, yeah, you might not like them, but you probably have some of those same, qualities too.
Characteristics, right?
Right, right. Yeah, but that's you're right, because I feel like that's another layer. Like the sun sign, I think, is what everybody goes by, and then the moon rising, even, which I just learned about this last year. Your Venus sign is apparently your characteristics and how you are as it relates to love. And I read mine, and it's Aries, and I can't remember exactly what the characteristics were, which it's different from the sun sign Aries, so it's not exactly, 1-to-1 match. But what I read was pretty spot on for how I am in relationships. So
Okay, yeah.
kind of made me think, like, oh, okay, maybe there's something to that. I don't know.
And did you say that was your Venus?
Yeah, that
I
was my
mean,
Venus sign, is Aries.
so is the Venus is it because Venus has to do with love?
That's my guess. Yeah, I would guess so. I don't know exactly
Mm-hmm.
how, or like where the tie-in lies with
Mm-hmm.
that. But yeah, that's what my guess would be, at least.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, and I just think it's fascinating whoever came up with all of this and put it
Right.
all
That's
and
what I
put it
want to know. Right.
and put it all together, and you know because apparently it's been around a long time, right?
Right. Exactly. Like, even in the biblical days, there's talk of astronomers and
Right,
things like that. So it's not like it's a new age, type of thing.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very fascinating in that regard. So then because I've also a lot of different spiritual studies. You come across some that have about contracts. Do you know much about contracts?
Would it be the
And
same idea
like
as like
sacred contracts?
a soul tie type of thing, or no?
Could be, I guess.
Right. Okay.
That you come here and you have certain contracts you're going to meet. You're going to connect with certain souls or along your path, and it could be for
Mm-hmm.
long periods or short periods.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever caught any of the at times I've watched videos where people that have had near death experiences and come back and left, or even in in an experience where one spouse did die and the other one came back, and they had an interaction before one came back, and they said she told him, you have to go back and raise our son, because that was the agreement we made before we came here. We came here to give you this experience. And that's pretty profound. Like, so it kind of makes you wonder. So, all these things have influence on us, but were you supposed to meet that person anyway, to have that experience, even if your signs clash? Right. Because to learn something from that,
Right.
So it's something to think about. I mean, I'm open to it. I think wisdom is knowing you don't know everything. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like, it's interesting because someone that's left and had that experience and come back and tells about it, that's quite interesting. So,
right. I agree. And so, I'm curious to know this. So there's two questions that I ask everyone every season, but these two questions in particular I've been asking this season. So I know you said you're not like particularly strong into like the zodiac and everything like that, but if you had to pick, now this isn't giving away your sign yet, but we're getting there. We're getting close to it. So,
okay.
Do you think that there is a sign for you that's like your ride or die, your like Bonnie and Clyde? Now it could, and you can break it up too if you want. So you can say it from a romantic perspective as well as maybe from a friendship perspective. Is there one sign that stands out to you for any reason?
Well, I don't give it that much thought, but
okay,
it is. It's not like I'm seeking any particular sign based on that. So, my longest relationships have been with Scorpios.
Okay.
But also, I've met some amazing and great relationships with Virgos, as well as Sagittarius. So I really don't. I'm really kind of open. I probably. Like I said, I don't have a particular sign that I would be seeking. I do, I won't. I think, I was told once that it's good to, if you are going down, if you meet somebody and you are looking, could this be long term, is to have your natal charts done for both of you and see.
Yes.
And see where are the bumps in the road going to be, possibly that, that we could be ahead of.
Right.
So, but I think there's a lot, and I don't know if, I really, really believe, like, okay, so this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but it's just kind of maybe the way I look at it too, from a spiritual aspect, is that, we see ourselves as all separate, right? Because we're in this avatar body, and so we view ourselves as being separate, but we're really all technically one. We hear this, right? That we're all one. So we're trying to force this oneness into separateness, which has happened. And then and then most people are trying to seek to fill holes in themselves, right? And then, so we're trying to, like I said, this oneness is seen as separate. But then, if we can, if the person has wherever they grew up or whatever's happened in their life, if there's been any emotional trauma, physical trauma, and so forth, that's going to have a huge aspect. And is that going to, we're in this world of, like I said, duality, essentially.
Right.
Everything has its, no matter what you look at, it has its good or bad, and so this world of duality, and I really feel like if you can heal from the inside, heal the emotions, heal the because really, you know, we're in this world of duality, but it's really fear or love are the two emotions that everything falls towards. The opposite of love is fear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you can heal and you raise your consciousness and you come from love, I feel like you can kind of rise above those other sides of your sign.
Right.
And they tend to kind of fade away in the distance more.
Mm-hmm.
But
Like
that's,
you're more mature, or not mature, but yeah, like that rise above what
yeah, and your
you
thoughts,
think.
I guess. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And I mean, this is all coming like from a spiritual aspect, but I mean, you're like
Mm-hmm.
putting, you know, it's being conscious of your thoughts, actions, words, and
Right.
exact, you know, just I kind of feel like that even though that you may have these, each sign may have its like negative, so to speak, you can,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you were talking about earlier, you know, do people use those to fall back on?
Right.
Well, you shouldn't have to if you rise above it and don't give them any thought. Just don't.
Mm.
I
That's
guess
true. I
I'm
like
trying to
that.
think how to word that to make
It makes sense
to
to me.
convey it to, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally makes sense. One thing you said that I think is really interesting, and you talked about the duality between, or the basically the existing duality, I should say, love and fear. So do
Mhm.
you think that love and fear can coexist equally, or does one always outweigh the other?
Well, you're either in this realm where you're either coming from love or you're coming from fear. You know, fear would be even when someone's angry, or what are they
Mhm.
angry about? I mean, if you were to dig down, it could be fear of loss, fear of, you know, an insecurity. It could be a lot of different
Mm.
things. So I think in this, you know, there I don't, you know, with going into like the spirituality like of God is perfect love that most of us haven't even experienced, and I don't think the really the love that we feel in this realm is not even what God's love is like.
Mhm.
Because but so to exist equally, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really given that really any thought if it could, because I feel like you're not doing both at the same time
Mhm.
when you're either coming from one or the other.
Right.
So if that it so I guess in this world that you kind of exist as a yin and yang kind of thing, but
Yeah.
it's just which one are you going to you know, go towards
Lean
or try to
into,
live
right.
in. Right,
Hmm.
right.
I love that. I feel like I always get some type of nugget every time we talk, and so I'm gonna remember that, because I feel like it's, to me, in my opinion, I feel like it's impossible to fully dive into love and explore love of any kind,
Hmm.
and explore that if fear is just as strong.
Well, I
It's
mean,
almost.
fear, you know, fear is the part that that's definitely going to hold you back. It's going to make it's, you know, jealousy is fear. All those, you know, low level vibration emotions are going to be in the world of in fear, essentially.
Mhm.
Um, there's a good book that you could a good Dr. David Hawkins, Power versus Force, or
Oh,
he goes through a
okay.
lot of it in his books, The Eye of the I. And there's all these each of these emotions, there's a hierarchy of frequency, and as you go through, as you as a person raises their consciousness and starts to lose the ego, and they race through that, you'll see those you can, it's quite interesting, the chart that they have in there, in the book, on the different frequencies, And when you're resonating at those higher frequencies, it's raising the consciousness of closer to God consciousness in a sense, being one. Yeah. So
I love that. Hey, that's cool. I've got to check out that book too. I'm gonna I hope it's on Audible because I have about 5 or 6 Audible credits I need to use. So
yeah, I believe most of his books are on Audible because I have them. Yep.
Nice. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, oh no, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, you're go ahead.
No, I didn't want to cut you off. I didn't want to miss your point that you were about to say.
Well, what I was going to say is that I learned about his books years ago, and actually my brother was studied some of his stuff. But I was going through I just find it's interesting when you sometimes that whole when the student is ready, the teacher shows up.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a patient come in, and I was kind of like, anyway, long story. He was a student. He was with Dr. Hawkins has since passed, but he was one of his students, and I felt like that was a message to me to start to go back and pick up his work. So
wow.
It was kind of interesting because at that time I was kind of pondering like what I should gravitate towards next, and it was interesting. And he and I had a lot of deep conversations, but he it was to meet somebody that actually sat and studied under him, that was pretty interesting. So
wow, that is.
Yeah, it's one of those stories you don't. There's more details to it, but it's interesting how it all unfolded and some things he shared with me. So yeah.
Wow.
So that's awesome. Look him up.
Okay, I will. I am. I'm gonna look it up tonight, and I'm gonna go ahead and save that book.
Save a credit.
Library. Right. I can start listening tomorrow while I'm working. So I know we've gone like kind of far into the show, but I definitely want to give the viewers and the listeners a chance to know what your sign is.
Has anyone guessed yet?
No one has guessed yet. So I'm surprised no one's given a guess, but a couple of things so one thing you said, if I were guessing, and I'll go ahead and ask you your birthday after this. I would maybe think you are a Sagittarius because you said adventure, or you mentioned adventure. You like adventure. I feel like Sagittarians are kind of I don't want to say the most fearless, but they're very outgoing, or anything that's like outdoors or a trip. Or I have a friend who was on here for season 2, I think it was, and about 2 years ago, she said she was going to leave the country, and her plan is really not to come back. And so she's pretty much done that. Like, she's retired and she just packed up and left. And I'm like, what about your family? And what? She's like, oh, we still talk. And then when I come back, I see them, and she's there by herself. But I feel like that's such a Sagittarius thing from what I know of a lot of them to do. So I would have maybe guessed that that's your sign. But go ahead and tell us, when is your birthday?
My birthday is July 7th.
Okay. So you are a Cancer. So if anybody has watched this show, I have said on here several times that, and maybe it's what is it? I don't want to say the law of attraction, but sometimes when you put certain things out in the atmosphere, it's like those things find their way to you because you've said it. But I started paying attention to this even before I started ever speaking it. But I noticed that for some reason, Cancers and Geminis, I click really well with. And so when you told me, I think it was years into me coming there, coming to Living Well. And some kind of way, I forgot, because I know we have a lot of different conversations, but we talked about birthdays. And then when you told me when your birthday was, in my head, I thought, oh, that makes sense.
It's a good energy thing, right?
Yeah, it is. It honestly, yeah, it is. And so with that in mind, is there something that you've heard um, about cancers that when other people think of cancers um, may cause them to pause or kind of pull back a little bit, or like, I don't know, like when people, uh, just in your experience, and maybe you've never had that experience, I don't know.
I've never had anybody tell me, what they, what would be a negative or a turnoff about a cancer. I haven't had that experience, but I'm sure,
Mhm.
it's out there. But
Right.
now, I mean, some of the things when I read about my sign, I think, I think I'd seen moody shows up, and I'm like,
Mhm.
well, okay. I know if do I get moody? Like I'm definitely not like up and down emotional or anything
Right.
like that.
I don't
But
see you being
I,
that way.
but I think, I think if I'm moody, I'm just quiet. And I've actually in a relationship, I said, hey, it's kind of a rough day. So if I'm quiet, so I just kind of, put it out there. Like if I'm quiet, it's
Right.
just because I'm,
It's
um,
been a hard day.
but I really don't, I really try to keep that in balance as far as I don't really want my mood, I don't feel like I'm as maybe it's through growth.
Hmm.
I don't feel like it's, that affected, around, but I could, if I'm quiet, I'm quiet. But I think as a male, I mean, what do they say? Like you said, you need time to go reflect. I mean, we go to our cave, right? Isn't that the
Right.
whole
Right.
Men Are
That's
From
kind of a
Mars thing?
God thing to do. Right. Right.
um, so I would think, let me think, mood. And then there was another one that I recall, because I've asked this. I don't know if the word is needy. I don't ever feel, and I've even been in a relationship and said, do I come across as needy? And they're like, absolutely not. So I'm like, good. Because if I am, let me know if I ever
Right.
come across that
Right.
way. So tell me. But, so yeah, I don't ever want to come across that way.
Yeah, me neither. I never want to be that way either. And I know for me, like, um, in some ways, when you told me your birthday, I thought you were Cancer spot on, and then in other ways, I kind of thought that's not typical of, again, the stereotype. Which on the positive side of it, I think cancers, and I feel like you are a part of this too. Um, they're really able to articulate how they feel about something. Um, where that's something I know with me, with growth and um, trial and error, or maybe articulating things the wrong way a lot of times. I think I've gotten
Yeah.
a lot better at it over the years, but I feel like with cancers, that's almost an innate thing where um, they're very in tune with their emotions. And I've also read too that cancers can be very emotional. Um, but I don't see you, I don't really see you in that way. But then again, too, and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit last night too when we talked, is um, even with the zodiac or just people in general, um, a lot of times we only know pockets of a person.
True.
Because
Yeah.
I know you as, I mean, of course, we've had personal conversations, but I know you, as my chiropractor. Whereas maybe your kids or, you know, exes, they may see you in a different way, maybe within that Cancer realm. Um, and even, and I know you touched on this earlier too, the environment and how we grow up. Like I grew up in a household where both of my parents are Virgos.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I have a lot of, well, not a lot, but a few probably stereotypical Virgo tendencies, um, just by association.
Okay. They
Yeah.
rubbed off on you.
Right. Right. Yeah, because most times when a lot of times when I send the details, even like about the podcast or the email, people will say, "Oh, like it's really detailed." I've even had a couple people tell me that's not characteristic of an Aquarius to be that detailed. And it's like, okay, like I don't know. I don't know if I should say thank you, if I should be offended or what. But I think the reason why I'm like that is because um, I've had that Virgo influence, and they're one of their stereotypes is they're known for being perfectionists or kind of paying attention to detail and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, maybe that could be a piece of it too.
Yeah, I can see that. It is fascinating, right? How
Yeah.
those traits and so forth are, and maybe certain traits are going to be stronger in certain people based on their upbringing. Because if someone is, if someone was in a home that wasn't very nurturing, they don't, would that person sign, if it was a more of a nurturing sign, would they break through that and still be a nurturing person? I don't know. Those,
right.
how we're raised. So those are good food for thought for future shows, right?
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah, for sure. So do you think that when it comes to, because I've heard a lot of people say this almost every episode, you're one of the few people, and I think it's so cool because you have so many different perspectives. I know, like based on our conversations, but almost everyone I talk to, they have at least one sign that they're like, I can't stand them. And what I found in a lot of scenarios is I don't judge a sign. If I've had one bad experience with a sign, I don't judge or you throw that sign out because of that experience. But I will say I have been in situations where I've maybe had 3 or 4 people who are the same sign do the same thing. And then it does make me kind of take notice, like, okay, maybe that is a trait, after several people have done it. But I think a lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong if you think otherwise, but I feel like a lot of people go through a bad situation, and then now that person is the poster child for it. Like, oh, I don't like this, this one sign. So I guess with that said, do you have a sign that you maybe would stray away from a little bit based on your experience?
What I do, so being a Cancer, so I've got Gemini on one side and Leo, right on the other side. So I've never, as far as in a relationship, I don't think I've even met a Leo as far as
really,
as far as like a romantic type relationship.
Okay.
Well, there's quite a few. It's interesting. It seems sometimes seems to be a lot of the same trends, but one relationship with the Gemini, it was kind of you could tell it was kind of didn't go well like that. Right. It wasn't as smooth.
You may not want to try that again.
But I've heard, the signs you're close to on each side, that maybe that there's things there that, and is that true? Because you're in this realm more than me. Is that?
Oh, the signs that you're close to.
Yeah, that on either side of you, on either side of your sign, that maybe they're too core.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard. So, uh,
And
I
see,
guess two.
as a water sign, so I've
Right, because you're a water sign. Yeah,
so Scorpio and Pisces, and so I don't think I've even ever dated a Pisces. I mean, it's just interesting, right? It's never
really.
come
Yeah.
across it's never happened. So
Huh.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's huh. That's interesting. I know one thing I've noticed. It's kind of like a common thread through a lot of these episodes is, um, it seems like the signs that people clicked with the most are the ones that are outside of their own element. So, like you just said, water signs, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, um, your closest bond may be with someone of another element. So, like, maybe it's an air sign or an earth sign or what's the other one? I'm drawing a blank. Fire sign.
Oh yeah.
So I know for me, so like my ones on either side would be Pisces, um, and Capricorn. Um, which is interesting because I guess if we go with that argument, the whole empathetic, I've been told I can be kind of, I don't want to say rude, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm conveying something that maybe I don't like blunt, I guess is what I'm trying to say, where I feel like that blunt characteristic is, and again, not to generalize, but I feel like a lot of Capricorns have that, um, which to me makes them great friends because, if I really want to know if I'm falling off the rails, I just ask them and they're like, yep, you are. Like, they won't sugarcoat it. Whereas a Pisces, I feel like is a little more kind of dreamy, imaginative. Some people would say emotional, I guess, to some degree. Um, so I do think of an Aquarius being kind of sandwiched between the two of those. Yeah, you can kind of pull. I can see that you can pull from both sides a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if well, I guess if you're on that cusp of one, but I think I'd read somewhere a long time ago that the closer those signs are to your sign, as far as in the chart,
Hmm.
there may not be as much chemistry, but um, I think I think they could all work. It sounds like to me that maybe we should have been looking at our moon and our Venus, maybe versus.
Oh, right, right. Yeah. Well, to your point. So, um, I wonder sometimes, and maybe this is something I'll study up on in between seasons, but I've wondered if I'm actually more Leo, if we're just going by what people call the big three, and those like your sun, moon, and your rising sign. Um, two of my three are Leo because my moon is Leo and my rising is Leo. Um,
So, if you
so
don't mind, what is our rising sign?
it is. I know it's. Uh, Somebody
This
broke
is
it
for the
down for me
listeners at
really
home,
well.
not for.
Right.
Because no, I
So,
really don't. I don't know that. I think I may have
so
heard this, but I don't know how you figure it out.
one is, and I might be butchering this, but I feel like so your moon sign is, if I'm not mistaken, what you are at your core, I
Oh,
believe.
well,
Like
that
the
sounds
real
important.
deep you. Right, exactly. Right. Well, who you are at your core. And I think the rising is what you present to people. Um,
Oh, okay.
so I guess in my case, and again, I hope I'm not butchering this too badly, but I guess my core and what I present to people is kind of in line, I guess, maybe because they're the same sign. And then I think your sun sign, which is interesting, the one that everybody goes by, or most people go by, is more so your, I don't want to say your mask, but maybe how other people perceive you to be based off of certain characteristics or things. So, kind of what I've read, or what I got out of it was your sun sign might not be the real you, because it seems like it's more based on perception than the other two, like the moon and your rising. So I thought that was interesting, especially since a lot of the things that I've read about Aquarius, I think, are pretty, I think, kind of spot on to my personality for the most part. So yeah, it's interesting.
So yeah, and most people aren't going to know where their moon is or what
Right.
moon sign. So, but that's a good thing to add. You know, when you meet somebody, so what's your moon sign? That'll throw them for a loop.
What is that? And they're like, huh? Right? And some people, it's weird because some people know, like they can just rattle them off. And there's it's an app called, because I had a guest on, I think she was on episode 8, I believe. It was episode 7 this season. She mentioned this app called CoStar that helps you calculate your moon and rising, which is basically based on your location that you were born, and the time, like day and time of day. Like, so for me, I was born on a Monday. I think it was 5:09 p.m. 5:09. It was 5 o'clock hour for sure. I know that. Somewhere around there. So all of that, some kind of way, it calculates into, or gives the calculation rather, for your moon and rising sign.
So your rising sign will just be one of the 12 zodiacs. Is that essentially what
Right.
it means? Or it's in, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be one of the 12 too. So yeah, it's I think it's pretty interesting because there's this whole rabbit hole that you can go down of, okay, there's this, and then there's these houses too, because the 11th, so Aquarius would be in the 11th house. I don't know what Cancer is, but
so you're basically saying we all have split personalities.
Pretty much. Right. Nobody has just this one set way of being. I don't think. Yeah. There's all these different facets to us, and that's one of the things I really want people to get from the show, is that yes, you can have characteristics of your sign, and maybe there are some truths to that, but at the same time, I don't think people should live by it to a point where they're shunning another sign or rejecting another sign, or allowing fear to overtake love as it relates to a sign or getting to know a sign. So
true. And and that's the thing where these where you could look at it and say, well, if these contracts really do exist, then it doesn't matter what sign somebody is, that's who you're going to meet. There's no accidents, and you can't stop it. I mean, it's just, have you ever heard of those relationships where the guy chased the girl and kept chasing the girl and she saying no, and then finally said yes, and then they, I don't know about lived happy ever after, but but it's like, was it what was, so it's like, I don't know. It's one of those things. I mean, I've heard it put, you can't mess it up, whether you may think that relationship was bad, but it was supposed to be that experience you were meant to have, because if everything happens for a reason, then you can't say everything happens for a reason except for this, and this.
Right. Not these
Right.
things. Right.
So
Right.
I don't know. It's
Huh.
it's a mystery, right?
Yeah, it is.
But it's
It
it
is.
is interesting to talk about and to expand and just be open minded. That's the big thing. Be open minded
Right.
about it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Um, yeah. Cool. Wow. But it's hard to believe an hour has already gone by. So before we close out, I definitely want you to have a chance to talk about living well. And just and I'm not sure if we talked about this before, but how did you get your start in being or what was the catalyst or spark to you becoming a chiropractor? Like was it always kind of an interest or like how did you get into it?
Well, I mean, I when I was through most of my teenage years, I was really focused on being an architect, um,
Huh, okay.
designer. I was really that artistic side, and I was pretty certain that's what I was going to do.
Wow.
And
Huh.
then, but I was going to a chiropractor through a few little minor injuries through football and different things, and I was going to a chiropractor throughout high school, and he was a friend of the fam or became a friend of my mom and dad's, and so I would say he had a huge influence on what getting to watch a lot of big changes in people's lives. People,
Right.
minor little miracles and whatnot of people getting better and getting to observe some of those things. So I felt like I was leaning towards, there was a part of me that was leaning towards, I felt like this calling to be a doctor, to be of service. But I didn't, the medical route, mainstream medicine did not really appeal to me.
Hmm.
And then there was a period where I really thought I was going to be an eye doctor. I was kind of really going down
Really?
that
Huh.
avenue. And then by chance, I ran into a chiropractic student, which I guess no chance. There was no. It
Oh,
was
right. It's
by
meant to
fate,
be.
right?
Right.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
doing something, and we stood there. He was in the mall doing some kind of a screening actually, and but he was still a student, and we stood there and talked for probably an hour. And I hadn't gotten into chiropractic school yet. I'd pretty much had done most of my classes, my prerequisites in undergrad, and I was trying to decide what to do. And that moment, that night, is when I pretty much decided to pursue chiropractic school, because it was kind of like it was always there
Hmm.
as a possibility, um, but that pushed me in this direction. So
Wow.
um, and so that was pretty much it. And it was it wasn't easy. I mean, it was um, had a young family at the time, and so I
Right.
had kids early in life, and so doing that and going through that. But here I am now. So it's
Yeah.
23 and a half years
Paid off.
later. So yeah, I mean, it's fulfilling. It is gratifying to help people feel better, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
Huh. That's awesome. Well, you definitely helped me for sure. So if y'all are in the Plano area, well, even if you're not in the Plano area, um, you
You
should
have a
go
lot of
see
folks that
Dr.
drive in
Groves.
town. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I think everyone, whether you come see me or see anyone, find a good doctor that you connect with, and everybody, just like you have a dentist, or you really, it's just part of that puzzle, helping maintain health. A
Hmm.
lot of times, a lot of problems we see, um, the problem may present itself here, and recently in someone's life, as far as symptoms go, but the underlying problem could have been there for months or years in the making before the symptoms ever showed up.
Right.
So I see that a lot,
I
so
can imagine.
just there's a lot to say for good maintenance as well. So
Hmm.
So it's pain is the motivator for a lot of folks, but there's a
Right.
lot of there's a lot to chiropractic as far as just trying to help maintain a healthier body and healthier you in this while we're in this place.
Right.
So,
Do you find, and I know you just said like pain is the motivator, so I'm sure a lot of your patients maybe are coming to you at the height of that pain. Do you find that it's when you give them recommendations that it's hard to maybe get them to follow some of the things that you say, or does it just kind of depend on the person? Or
I would say I think most do, but I think it does depend on the person
okay,
for sure. I mean, if I give home exercises, you have those that are going to definitely do them and those that may not, but that's with anything. So, and just a little bit about in the practice, I don't put anyone on really long, lengthy treatment plans, but if there's somebody needs something that's going to take some time, I'll tell them. But
right,
it's really, we, like yourself, I have a lot of patients that come in for wellness type care, and it's always a choice. I mean, I recommend it, but nobody has to do it, because I hear this, you get the stereotypes, like we're talking stereotypes. Once you go to a chiropractor, you always have to, no, it's a choice.
Yeah, right. You don't have to, right? And your body will. Oh, go ahead.
Well, and it's true. I was going to say you'll know, because the more
Uh-huh.
when you've been under care, you'll know when your body will talk to you and let you know, hey, it's time to kind of get some things functioning better here. So
Yeah.
So it's we can't. I don't like to use the word fix, but I mean we can definitely help a lot of conditions and improve quality of life. So that's the main thing.
Right.
You
Quality of life. Yeah. Like I said, you definitely have done that for me. And I know sometimes life or just things get busy. And I try not to let it at the longest, 2 months go by now. Because I started noticing, I think there was one time, maybe it was like 3 months, and I just got busy and maybe I was moving that month or something. I didn't come in.
Life
And
happens. Yeah.
my body started to let me know, like, you need an adjustment. So,
Right.
so for me, it's a need for me, I would say, because I don't want to take that risk of going X amount of time without it, and then I have something that sets me back even further, and I've made all this progress. I remember um, the first time I had a decompression, and I had never heard of it before. And once you broke it down to me and told me everything about it, um, it was so cool. I remember I was telling everybody because I felt like, because I joke a lot because a lot of my friends are taller than me, so I'm one of the few that's under 6 feet. So
Yeah.
it felt like after I had the decompression that I literally got taller, but it just, I don't know. It's like my mind felt clearer. My workouts were even better because, I didn't have that little uh, twinge of pain, I guess, that I felt like I had to work through. So I've, yeah.
Well, and that treatment is specifically targeted to treat what you were experiencing too.
Okay.
In your lower back. But
Right.
I mean, really with decompression, I think everyone can benefit from it to a degree because we all sit, or most people are sitting at some
time.
point.
Right.
Yeah. So there's always a lot of compression in that lower spine. So it's a good therapy that really complements chiropractic. So
right. Awesome. Hey, that's cool. All right. Well, before we wrap up, I do have a game that I play with everybody, so I definitely want to keep that part the same. And it's called Dead in the Water. And basically, I'll ask you 5 kind
Dead
of
in the
rapid
water.
fire. Yeah, I know,
Sounds
right?
intimidating.
So the concept of it is this or that, but instead of telling you or you telling me which,
Is that music? What?
yeah, it is.
Oh, I know. I
My
can't hear you.
nephew.
Oh, there you
Oh, can you hear me now?
go. No.
Oh, okay, cool. My nephew made this track or whatever you call it, the music. I was actually on his TikTok one day, and I clicked on this link he had, and he had all this music. And so I said, "What are you doing with this? And like, these are just songs you've collected?" And he's like, "No, I produced these." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
so I thought it was pretty cool. So I bought one from him.
Oh, okay.
I may
Nice.
switch it up for next season. Who knows? But I've been using this has been my, I guess, theme song of sorts for the podcast. But yeah, it's just 5 questions, and whichever thing of the 2 that you like the least, or the thing that you would throw back in the water,
No rush.
that's the one you'll tell me.
Okay.
So basically, the one you dislike, not the one you like of those.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds simple enough.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go, and they're kind of varying topics. So it's different things. So this first one, I think I know which one you're going to pick. Biking or, well, actually, that was supposed to say hiking or cycling because they're almost kind of the same thing. Let me change that. So out of those 2, hiking or cycling, which one would you throw away?
Well, I'll throw away hiking.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I know you're big into cycling. So
Mhm.
okay,
I like both, but yeah, definitely throw away hiking.
okay.
Not too many places to hike around here anyway.
Well, true. Yeah, you'd have to go somewhere outside of this area. That's true, to get a really good hike in, right? A hike up the side of a hill. That's about it. All right. So mustard or mayo?
Throw away. I would have to throw away mustard.
Really? You would?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Throw away the mustard. All right. CD or vinyl? Which one would you get rid of?
Well, I probably, since I'm not really a collector, but it seemed like vinyl would carry more of a collectible type nostalgia to it. So throw away the CD then.
Okay. All right. Throwing away the CD.
Even though I don't have a way of playing it, it just seems like it'd be cool to have.
Right. Yeah. I just, and I think we talked about this before, I just started collecting vinyls here in the last few years. And it definitely can be an interesting habit because, you know, at first it's like 5 or 10 records, and it's like, okay, I just kind of stack them in the corner. And then now I have about 250.
Now I got to build a bookcase or something.
Right. So I have a big case that I got for Christmas that kind of houses, and even then I don't have all of them in there, but most of them are able to fit into that big case. But now I really think about it. If I buy a record, it's like, okay, do I really want to add to the space that I have that I'm taking up here?
That's
Yeah.
So I take it you do have a way of playing those then.
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a record. Right. Yeah. That would be really bad if I did. Like,
just collect them.
Stack them up. Right.
Yeah.
I'll play them one day. Yeah. Mountain or beach?
You know, that is. I usually say beach. I love both, but if I have to choose, I'll throw the mountain back and keep the beach.
Okay.
But I love both. Yeah.
But do you think you chose the beach because you're a Cancer, or that's just you just like beach better?
Well, there could be some truth to that. I do love. I feel like I am solar powered, so I do like. And then just having your feet in the sand and the salt water. I mean, there's a lot of healing to that, and just kind of grounding, and just the blue ocean,
Right.
Just, yeah, I definitely always lean to the beach, but
Okay. I mean, if I were playing this, I would say throw away the mountain too. So, yeah, I love anything with water, or beaches, or yeah. Okay, and last one. So, I don't take it that you watch a whole lot of TV, or does it seem like maybe you do? But I threw this in here because I was just curious to see which one you would pick. So, out of these streaming services, Apple TV Plus or Hulu, which one do you think you could do without?
Apple TV Plus or Hulu?
Mm-hmm.
I've never watched Apple TV. I think my kids
okay.
have it, but I think I may pay for it, but I don't think I.
But you may not watch it.
No, I don't know that I've ever seen anything on that. And Hulu, I don't even know that I have that either. So
Maybe both of them.
got a recommendation.
Well, I didn't want to say. I started to say Netflix. I was going to put that in as one of the two, but I feel like that might have been an easier choice.
Yeah, probably. I guess I only really have the two, Prime and Netflix, and I don't watch them very often unless I just feel like I need to find something else. I do a lot of YouTube, just regular YouTube, not YouTube. But so if you're, I guess I would have to throw away Apple TV because I have no idea what's even on it.
Okay, so you throw that one away.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what shows are on either one of those
On
platforms.
Apple TV.
Yeah, we're on Hulu even. I mean, I know I've seen it. I've seen it off somebody's, but I don't know what's on there.
Just don't know. Okay. If you get a chance, Apple TV, I think you might like this show. If you get a chance to watch one of the episodes, let me know. Have you heard of the TV show Ted Lasso?
I have. Never seen it, but I've heard of it.
It's on Apple TV.
Okay.
It is hilarious, and it's a mix of so many different things. Like there's a little bit of drama in there. There's like life lessons, like kind of talking about values and things like that. There's comedy. I think actually that's the category they put it in, is comedy, but it's kind of more of a dry humor, I guess you could say, to some degree. But it's a really good show. Yeah, if you get a chance to watch one of the episodes, I'd love to know what you think about it.
So hasn't that been around a while, or is it still? Are these old shows? Okay.
Yeah,
because I remember hearing of it years ago.
I think Ted Lasso is in or they're about to be like maybe in their 4th season or so. So yeah, they've definitely been around for a few years, or it's been around a few years.
Yeah.
Well, cool show.
Okay.
If you check it out. I'd love to know what you think. But
okay.
But yeah. Well, hey, that is a wrap. Is there anything that you want to leave with the viewers and the listeners before we cut out?
Well, I don't know. I enjoyed being here. I really didn't know what to expect. Carlos is wonderful. I think everyone is better, is blessed to know him and be so.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Is this so I guess we're being broadcast around the world, right?
Yes, that's right. It is currently live on YouTube. It's actually live on Twitter too.
Oh, okay. So no, just thanks for having me. It was fun.
Good.
Hopefully we accomplished what we set out to do, which was no goal in mind, right? Just it's kind of shed light on the stereotypes, really. Yeah. And not get so stuck in. Right. I think that's a good conclusion. Maybe not not be closed-minded.
Right. Right.
Maybe that's the moral of it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. So I agree. I think it's definitely a great way to close out the season. And thank you for agreeing to do it, and for being on. So I feel like you're like a veteran now with my podcast, because so for those that you may be listening or watching and you think, oh, this voice sounds familiar. So a few years ago, I had another podcast called Trigger Point, and Dr. Gross was on that podcast as well. Actually, you were on the same episode as the friend I was telling you about who packed up and left the U.S.
Oh, okay. That was her.
It was that lady, Ali.
Okay.
Y'all were on the same episode, actually. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
it's been a few years, hasn't it?
Right. Yeah, it has been. But that was an audio only podcast, so y'all can go ahead and check that out too. It's on all the streaming services, but yeah.
And maybe at some point you can have like a little studio where you live and just film it in your own little studio.
So what's crazy is I try to
in
make
a spare bedroom
space look like a studio almost, and a lot of times I do record it at home, but I have a dog now, and he barks at everything that walks in the hallway, and so it makes it kind of difficult to record at home. But I used to, at one point I was recording at home.
Okay, that would make sense.
He would be a guest on every episode if I recorded at home.
Yeah. You may not want to muzzle your dog, so
right. Right. Like, we're just gonna keep this on you for an hour and then I'll take it off. Yeah. But yes, thank you again, Dr. Groves. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for
pleasure.
Joining me. Thank you. And this is great. I really enjoyed it. And for all of the viewers and the listeners, again, this is the season finale, so that's a wrap for season 4. But definitely gonna have content that I'll still be posting in the interim, and I'll see everybody back for season 5 on May 30th.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Groves.
See you next season.